So just to run everyone through what the current standings are, Pinsim Drillers lead the championship in the hypercar class ahead of Omicron Sim Racing. Satellite Racing are third, having only been able to attend the one race meeting, which was back in round 1 at Indianapolis. LMP2 class Vargas Sim Racing lead, having secured 2 race wins and are in fact the only team in the entirety of the Endurance E-Racing World Championship who have been able to take 2 straight clean sweeps, and that requires winning the race and taking pole as well, and of course completing the race, but that comes with securing the race win. Pinsim Drillers are second in the LMP2 class, having secured a P2 and a P5. Fair Racing Team third with a P3 and a P4 last time out at Indianapolis, with Ramada Motorsports just 1 point behind, 2 points separating Pinsim Drillers in P2. In the LMP2 class 2, Ramada Motorsports down in P4. GTE currently being led by Musto GD, who are able to secure their first win of the season last time out in Silverstone. And Ewan O'Leary, that GT3 class, as well as the GTE class, looking very, very close.
Yeah, there's a lot of classes actually that are very close at the moment. I'm certainly seeing the GT ones are the ones to look out for. I think they're going to be the ones to watch out for. I mean, GTE last season was especially interesting. Came right down to Le Mans. I'm expecting a similar situation here this year.
Yep. Yeah, in the GT3 classes, Unison Racing, who lead the championship almost by a whopping 20 points. It's currently 17 between themselves and Mugen Sim Racing, with Danish Racing League a further 6 points behind. One Move Esports in P4 with 27 points. But again, my eyes, and I don't know, maybe I shouldn't say this, but my eyes are firmly fixed on that GTE class. I think that's where we're going to be seeing the most entertainment, the most action on circuit, and in terms of the number game for the championship. It's pretty much a joint biggest field alongside the LMP2 class, but when you think about how close the field is, it's a game of anyone can win a race, and I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, if we got to the end of the championship and we had 6 different race winners by the time we complete round 6 at Le Mans all the way in October. But we'll have to wait a few months before we can get to that stage and we can start discussing about Le Mans, and we'll see if we've even had 5 different winners by that point. But we do have the 2 different winners, and the GTE class, the only class at the moment that has seen 2 different race winners. HM Engineering winning the opening race and Musto GD winning the second race. But I think the most interesting thing, and myself and Alex Goldschmidt, we discussed this in our mini podcast, I guess you could call it, was the fact HM Engineering, where were they going? Hotly missing engineering, I believe, is the term we dubbed it for them. The 959 car were not present for round 2 of the championship, and I'm currently looking through the timing sheets and I didn't see them present here for round 3 either at the moment. So Ewan, this circuit, Sebring, 17 corners. Go on, what do you think is the most difficult corner of the entire track layout?
Most difficult, well, I suppose that's quite a difficult question to answer, because they all are really, yes. Or most of them. But the one I would really highlight, and I know people harp on about the bumps here, but Sunset Bend for me is the one that is the real difficult one. I think that might be the obvious answer, but I think it's also, well, it's certainly what I think when I go driving around here, which is rare, I will admit. But on the odd occasion, I don't like driving it very much, and that corner in particular is very annoying, because there's about 1,000 ways you can go through there, and only 1 or 2 of them are actually right, so you can spend all day going around and you could never find the right way of going around Sunset Bend. It's just so difficult, and as the name kind of suggests, the sun's kind of in your eyes on the way down there, particularly in the evening. Just it's about to go down behind the horizon, it can really get in your face and make it even more difficult, which is just adds to your worries really. So yeah, it's a very very tricky corner, in my opinion. But as I was saying, I think all of them are, really. It's a very difficult circuit. I don't like driving it very much. I know it's a classic circuit, but it's really not one that I enjoy very much. Traffic can be a little bit difficult around here, and we've got the possibility that Nick presented to us the other day of rain that could appear at the early part of this race especially. So a lot of different challenges for these guys, and I think if those all things do kind of mix together, then it could be the most difficult race of the season so far.
So what you're saying, Ewan, is driving into sunset at sunset could be sunset for some of the drivers and teams.
Yes, is what I'm saying. I like it though. Yeah, it's not very snappy, but it does work very well. I like it. Yeah, really good. It's the walls are quite close there as well, which is one thing I didn't mention. I know it's tarmac runoff, but the walls are quite inviting, and I've already seen one car, actually one LMP2, end up in the wall down there. I know it's only practice, and people might be pushing a little bit hard, but yeah, it's a very tricky corner with walls ready to collect you if you get it a bit wrong.
And you can see when you look at the circuit that it's a very old track. You can see, the tarmac's a little bit broken up in places, and the whole vibe is it's almost kind of Silverstone-esque, and it's very concreted around. Now, I'm looking at Dewey Toman at the moment in the 117 car, the Vargas Sim Racing car that's leading the LMP2 field in the championship. And you can really notice those bumps that you were talking about, Ewan. Pretty much every corner that you see the Vargas Sim Racing car go through, the entire car is skittling around. And I think drivers will be glad that the effects of bumps aren't going through their sim rigs.
No, not fully. Obviously, if you do want to be really brave, I don't suggest doing this in a race, but if you turn in force feedback all the way up, then you can really start to feel that one. But none of these guys are going to be doing that. You're right, it's not quite as severe on them. There might be a few achy wrists the day after the 12 hours on Saturday, but nothing more than that, really. Nothing like you would see in real life. And as you say, these guys are really going to be quite glad about that. It's very, very tricky indeed, very, very bumpy. I think this is true, that it's never actually been resurfaced ever in the history of the circuit, ever since it was starting being used. I think it has never been resurfaced ever in its I believe that's correct anyway. Someone will correct me if that is not correct.
I know since the 1980s they've been using almost the same layout. There was a change back in the early 2000s where they added the whole section from turn 10 down to turn 13. You used to go straight on before at turn 10. And then since then there have been some minor adjustments. The Fangio chicane and at turn 7 have been slightly altered, but aside from that, I'm not aware of any changes to the track layout at the very least.
Well, I guess they can do what they like with it here, really, can't they? Because it's an abandoned airfield or a pre-used airfield, if you want to call it that. It's not in use anymore, obviously, but they can kind of go where they like with it because it's so flat around it in Florida, and there was quite a lot of space. So you can, as I say, you can really go where you want and add these chicanes in it and so on. But yeah, it's certainly one of those classic circuits that really you always want to come to. You always want to win at them as well, and it's the first circuit this season that we are returning to from last season. So in the EEWC 2020 we had round 1 here at the 12 Hours of Sebring. This time it's round 3, but it doesn't really matter, we're still returning again. We didn't go to Silverstone last year, and we didn't go to Indianapolis last year either, and we did go to Nürburgring. We're going to that next in June, but yeah, it's one of those circuits that we're returning to again after last year, and we didn't even have a hypercar finisher in that particular event. It was round 1 of the season. It wasn't even Rookie Monsters winning. They led for so long. They were leading by about 20 laps, but in the last hour, I'm afraid they ran out of fuel and they didn't win the race. It was heartbreak at the very end here at Sebring last year, and with more cars on the grid this year, I'm expecting it to be an even better race, actually.
Yeah, you mentioned that fuel incident for Team Rookie Monsters, and if I'm not mistaken, it was a certain, I believe it was DIS Sim Racing Lab that were able to take the win in the GT3 class as a result of that. So we'll see whether DIS Sim Racing can gain any positions from other drivers' misfortunes, other teams' misfortunes, and it is something that we've praised DIS for in the past season and even in this season, the fact that they're so consistent, they don't make many mistakes, and that's why that at the moment they're currently sitting second in the GTE class, 32 points, just 7 behind a Musto. And as we've already said, the GTE class is so close, you could see any of those kind of top 5, top 6 teams winning the championship come the end of the season.
Yeah, certainly, and DAS are one of those. They won the GT3 category last year in their 45 car. Their 46 didn't have such a great race, finished down in 9th, but yeah, it was a good end to this race actually in Sebring. Just carrying on with the DIS theme, I guess we can talk a little bit about them for the next couple of moments, because they are doing very well in this season as well as doing well in the last. So second place in GTE at the moment in the guys, but as I mentioned, they did win the GT3 category, and it came down to a real last, well, not quite last lap, but it was within the last half an hour when they were having a great battle with the 007 Pro Sim, neither of which have actually stayed in the GT3 category for 2021, but they had a great battle. Linus Lundin and Andy Kurtzen, who was driving the DSSR lab car, as you might expect. And yeah, they had a great fight towards the end of that race in the GT3 category, which was the most competitive in that race. But in the end, Kurtzen just managed to fend off London. And yeah, DIS will want something similar to happen here today. They're the only team actually who are, well, not the only team on the grid actually who are returning as winners, but they'll be looking to take another Sebring race winner, maybe get their third podium of the year. I was really surprised to see them on the podium at Indianapolis. Thought they really deserved one at Silverstone, and they got one. So their run of form is just continuing at the moment. It doesn't look like ending. I hope I'm not going to commentate as curse them at any point by saying this, by the way. But yeah, they're having a fantastic season, and there's no reason why it can't continue this weekend.
I think in terms of defending champions, at least in the same class, you've got Musto in the GTE class. They were your GTE champions from 2020. And I believe Vargas Sim Racing, I'm not sure, for the LMP2 class. I want to say Vargas Sim Racing, but I'm not sure. I know there were 3 teams in the hunt for the title, but I can't remember exactly who it was.
I don't know. I can't remember either. I think it was. I don't think it was them. But
it's pretty bad, isn't it? When I can't even remember our 2020 LMP2.
I can't either. 2020 was years ago. Anyway, I don't know what you're on about. But it was ages. But yeah, I honestly can't remember. If I'm completely honest with you, I think so.
Just
I know
fall for 10 more seconds, and I'll have you covered.
Well, I do know that Hypercar was won by Viaductin, who didn't retain in the same class. They've gone to GTE now, so we're going to see new Hypercar champions, whoever they're going to be. And in LMP2, I can't quite remember. I think Rookie Monsters might have won LMP2.
Rookie Monsters.
Well remembered me. And then GTE, I think Musto won that one from Simply Race.
I already said Musto won GT.
Oh, sorry, did you? I forgot about that. But there you go. Yeah, we both got that one right at least. And GT3, I honestly can't remember who it was won by. You're gonna have to tell us.
I said who won GT3. Yeah,
oh, did you?
Yeah, you can't not say no. You have to give a guess.
I'm not listening very well here, am I? Sorry about that.
I'll give you a hint. They're not currently in the GT3 class.
Oh dear, yeah, we're just talking about them.
Yeah.
How thick was that of me? Anyway, it doesn't matter. We just step past my kind of complete ineptitude and just carry on, really. I see what you mean, but no returning GT3 champions either, because they've moved. But Rookie Monsters, I'm afraid, didn't return for this season, so we're not going to see repeat winners there. But the only ones that can actually do it is Musto in GTE, and they've started off pretty well actually in season 2021. Just 7 points ahead of DASSR Lab, and as we were talking about a few moments ago, you might not have heard very much of it because my mic was breaking up quite a lot, but I fixed it now, so it's all right. Musto are only leading by 7 points, and then the increments between different cars going down from that very, very small indeed. So is a 37-point spread across the whole field. Justice Motorsport Club are currently in the 74, and they're last in the championship of the people who are actually still in the still in the standings. So they're all involved, and with this amount of points on the table, I think it's at least 100 for the final 4 rounds of the season if you combine them all together. So every one of these guys has got a massive chance of still winning this, because it's just really, really close in GTE, and it's very unpredictable as well.
I think it's something about 130, because it's double points for Le Mans, and then you have the bonus point for completing a race as well as fastest lap.
Pole. Yeah, pole.
I do have some information though regarding Team Rookie Monsters, and I actually know why they're not racing this season, which is quite an odd one. So, do you remember last season back at back in Le Mans, we were bringing guests, or we were bringing drivers in during the race, and we were asking them questions. We were asking for dating tips or romantic advice, essentially. And rumor has it that apparently Team Rookie Monsters started using those dating tips, and apparently they all now have girlfriends and wives, and sadly they are currently engaged and are unable to attend racing. So hopefully we do get to see Team Rookie Monsters in the near future.
They've managed to get engaged within like 5 months.
Exactly.
That wasn't very good advice, was it?
The dating advice was. That's how good the dating advice was last year.
Well, I can't say. I actually did catch it because we've got GTR 24H TV, which is on 24/7 these days. I randomly clicked on it one time because I saw it on Facebook once, and I heard that bit. It was on exact bit from Le Mans, yeah. So that's the only reason. I think I was in bed at that point actually, sleeping. But no, I know you were here with Alex as well, and there was that going on, and I managed to pick up a little bit of it.
You fell asleep to the sound.
No, I didn't fall asleep to the sound of it. I was probably asleep before.
That was the first one.
No, I got myself out of that a little bit. No, I was probably asleep before, because me and Ossian went through the night on that one. I think from like 1 a.m. to whenever you woke up, and Alex woke up as well. We had the night shift on that one, so I was probably sleeping at strange times. But yeah, that's all to look forward to. A couple of 24-hour races to end off the season. Thoroughly looking forward to those, and staying up at silly times in the morning to watch these guys go around and plod along. But yeah, that's all to worry about in the future, really. But for now, still practice for these guys. Just an update on the actual standings in practice, because I know we've been talking about other things, but in practice at the moment, Varga Sim Racing, Marcel Chintik and Yuri Toman leading 1-2. They're about 2 tenths apart. Sorry, not 2 tenths apart, 200ths apart is roughly where they are. Diak Hackers have got the next 3 spaces, so it's all very sectioned out in between the drivers, and they're very close to each other, these drivers are. I wasn't expecting that, I have to say, the number 95 being so close. They've had a decent start to this season, although the results haven't really shown that for them. They've had a 7th and a 10th, which doesn't show the best results for them, but I've seen them have some great pace, and they're showing it once again here, so maybe they can challenge Varga, which is going to be very, very difficult to do at any circuit, never mind here this weekend.
Yeah, and it's great to see that 3 of the 95 drivers are so close to each other within pace. Roland Sturks, Norbert Jakob and Martin Mergli currently separated by just over 2 tenths of a second for their fastest lap. So this could hopefully be a return to form, or DAC Hackers really showing what they're capable of. They were able to get that, I believe it was a P7, I want to say, back in round 1 in Indianapolis, P10 in Silverstone. So if they could get a top 5 finish, that could really launch them up the championship standings.
Yeah, it really could. It's very, very close behind Varga Sim Racing, but obviously they're stomping away with it at the moment, Varga, with the full 27 points from both of the first 2 rounds. So it's 26 points back to Drillers Esport in the 17, but really, DAC Hackers are only, or DAC Hackers are only 21 points off second, but they're way down in the lower parts of the top 10, so very, very close in that battle for second in LMP2. And obviously it's not over yet. Varga Sim Racing could have a bad day. They could DNF from one of the races, so you never know what's going to happen. And either way, the championship is not everything. If they were to get a race win from any one of these 4 rounds, from any one of the rounds in the season this year, then I think they'd be more than happy with that, no matter where they finish in the championship.
Out of curiosity, do we know what DEAC stands for? Because I'd imagine that DE could stand for German, and I could see A being Austrian, but I don't know what C is. Is it? Could be Switzerland.
I don't know what the DAC stands for, but I believe they are mainly a Hungarian team from the top of my head. I haven't actually researched that. I don't know that for sure, so I don't want to give them a different.
The driver name.
Yeah, good idea.
Roland Zooks. Oh, Benz. Yes, Benz to me is instantly a Hungarian name, from what I'm aware.
We don't know really. We're just guessing. Well, I'm certainly guessing at this point. We'll have to. Well, I did look it up actually. I couldn't find out, so I don't know for sure. They'll have to come tell us at some point because they do come up for a chat every now and again, and you can do so, by the way, if you want to in practice. We'll be trying to grab a few people throughout practice throughout the next couple of hours while we're on the air. We'll get a chat with some of these guys, see how they're feeling going into this weekend. But if you want one and we haven't contacted you, then you can pop yourself in the green room in the GTR 24H Discord. Sorry, not Discord. In the TeamSpeak, that's the word I was looking for, and you can get an interview, and it'd be nice to hear from you. Nice to hear from some of these guys about what's going on out there. But Diakak is looking like from now on, or from the early showing that they're displaying to us right now, looking like the most likely candidates to challenge Varga Sim Racing, who are still 1 and 2 at the moment in this practice session with nearly half an hour gone.
I also think, if I'm not mistaken, we were promised an interview by one of the GT3 class teams. It was either Danish Racing League or Mugen Sim Racing, I think. And
I can't remember.
I believe the deal was, if we can get a podium, we will do an interview for next time. And that condition was met. They were able to secure a podium. And I think I was either speaking to Zolt Trebek or might have been Sebastian Hove, I'm not sure. So we are owed an interview, so hopefully we can get one over the course of the evening. And I'm still just looking at the cars going round, specifically the LMP2 cars, and watching them go through Sunset Bend with the entire car just shaking as if it's literally on a roller coaster as it makes its way through the final corner.
Yeah, it looks like it's about to fall apart, really, with the way it's just bumping massively over the curb, or not even over the curb, sorry, but over the bumps around here. But yeah, it's really severe on these cars. Really stiff suspension, obviously, which helps. You don't want the car floating around everywhere else, because if you make it comfortable on the bumps, it's just going to be awful in the corners. So you don't want to do that. But you might soften it up a little bit here, I guess, because if it's so stiff, it's just going to bounce completely into the air, and you're not going to be able to go anywhere forwards, sideways, or anything in between. So you might make it a little bit softer, maybe, but no, it's really, really difficult to deal with. It's basically up to the driver to pick the right line to get the least amount of bump through. I know it's difficult, really, but you've just got to try and avoid them as much as possible, and just get there as much as you can. But the LMP2s particularly look quite bouncy up there, because especially stiff suspension. Prototype's not made for that, really, going over bumps like that. So it's not surprising to see them go over the bumps, but it is equally shocking every time we do see them having such trouble.
For those technically advanced, I can say, there is this thing that exists called fast and slow rebound on a car. And I'll be honest, I don't really know what they do. All I know is that when the car goes bumpy, the fast and slow rebound makes the tyres not go bumpy, and it stays on the track, and it gives more grip. I'm sure Peter and Alex, when they can give us more information at some point later in the broadcast.
This is the insight we came for.
Exactly. You and Yusuf bin Sahel with the insanely in-depth analysis of car go bumpy on the track.
We know everything. No, we don't. We've got no idea what we're talking about. We just watch them go around and do their thing. But that's why we're up here and not setting up any cars or doing any driving, because we're not particularly technical. Well, I'm certainly not particularly technically advanced. I've got no idea. But there you go.
Just be glad that when I do a setup, I put more rear wing than front wing or something like that, and the car doesn't spin every single corner. Although, if you gave me enough time, I'd probably end up doing that. But you mentioned one thing here, which I find very important, which was taking the right line through Sunset Bend, because it reminds me back when I used to do, when I raced in the British karting 24 hours at Teesside. There's this one corner that exists. And I think Teesside, a little bit like Sebring, have like to stick with we haven't ever resurfaced our track. And there is this one, and some people might call it a bump, others might call it a pothole, I'd call it a crater that exists in turn 2 of the track, and it's perfectly positioned you. It is right on the apex, so if you want to take the right racing line, your car just literally goes over the curb and it breaks your back, and doing that for a 90-minute stint hurts. So sometimes you have to do, let's say, the less manly thing and completely avoid the bump.
The less manly thing, but also known as the faster thing, I'd imagine. Or the one that keeps all your bones intact at the end of the day. But
it's slower when it comes to breaking every bone in your body.
Well, yes, there you go. That's self-preservation. It's a good idea from time to time. But yeah, it's a very similar situation, really. But the only problem here is that these bumps and potholes and craters and meteor holes are everywhere across the circuit at Sunset Bend, really, because the cars have just churned up the ground from ever since the racing around Sebring started. It's just been moved around and everything's been going on. So it's just incredibly difficult to go through Sunset Bend. But all these guys so far, I've only seen one person go off. Obviously, I can't watch that corner all the time. Getting on board with some of these guys, just having a look around, see who's doing what around on the circuit at the moment. But yeah, it's been fairly clean so far. There's been no real incidents to speak of on the circuit, just people doing laps, getting experience in traffic, which is also quite difficult to deal with around here, difficult to deal with at Sunset Bend, as we were mentioning earlier on. But yeah, we're half an hour into the practice session now, and things going smoothly for the moment. Lots of guys getting lots of laps in, which is what they all came for, of course.
Now, I've just realised, Ewan, that we have a certain celebrity out on track. It's my favourite driver is out on track at the moment. He hasn't been racing for the first few rounds. So on that cliffhanger, we're going to be throwing to a commercial break. And when we return, we shall be revealing who our celebrity driver is.
The 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship Round 3, 12 Hours of Sebring is brought to you in partnership with ESTV, Leap Gaming, SimLab, Motorvision.tv, Global Flix, Racing for Green, Viper Gaming, and AMD Ryzen Radeon.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the GTR 24/8 Endurance E-Racing World Championship. We are half an hour into the official practice session here Thursday evening. We have a qualifying tomorrow and the race starting at 11 a.m. GMT, 12 p.m. I always forget, is it p.m. or 8? Midday. Who knows? It's at 12 Central European time for you fancier folk out there. And Ewan, we left for our ad break on the biggest cliffhanger known to mankind. You thought Sylvester Stallone did cliffhanger? No. It's here on the Endurance E-Racing World Championship. We have a celebrity on the track. My favourite driver to have ever raced, maybe second, I don't know. One of my favourite drivers to have ever raced in GTR 24/8 is out on circuit. Or was out on circuit. They might currently be in the pits. Do you know who that is, Ewan?
I don't actually know. We were talking about a couple of names, and I've just spotted another one as well. So we'll talk about names in a moment. But go on, who is it? I don't know.
It's a man who owns the coolest bike in all eternity. Mantis Rekkers himself, ex-Rookie Monsters driver. We were talking about how Rookie Monsters aren't racing this season, and it seems that a certain Nick Newcomber has signed him on up for Deuces Motorsport in the LMP2 class.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he'd moved across, actually. Yeah, I can't actually find him at all up and down at the moment. Maybe I'm just being a bit blind.
P6.
Oh, that's why I'm looking down the bottom, and I didn't need to.
You thought Mantis Rekkers would be at the bottom of
I thought he just joined, so I had no time yet. That's where I was looking. No, I didn't know. He might not have made the jump, actually. He might just be on loan, I guess, if you want to call it that. I'm not entirely sure. We'll get an update from Nick on that one. Whether he's
like football, where he's on loan and he gets paid a bonus per fast slap he sets during a race.
No, that's not what I mean. But maybe they're you know what I mean, lending him out or something. But he may still belong to Rookie Monster. He may have left. I'm not entirely sure on that one because I didn't actually know that. But yeah, I didn't realise we are to have favourites actually. Yeah, here we are. Expressing our admiration for some of these guys. Here's Nick, by the way. He's just joined us in here.
Yeah, man.
Oh no. Hello, Nick.
Hello, Milky. The newcomer, yeah. Two drivers joining this, the number 15 car for the remainder of the season. Zorba Kiss from Hungary and Mantis Rekkers.
So, what's the story behind Mantis? How did you convince Mantis Rekkers?
I didn't need to convince him.
Oh, okay. It's like that, is it?
He messaged me.
Oh, right.
I'm sorry, he's loving you saying that out loud, but
yeah, secret messages. Yeah, no, it was in regards to another race actually. So we talked about that, and in midway through the conversation, he just happened to drop in that I'm available if you want. I'm like, yeah, right, you're signed. No ifs or buts, and it was
no brainer.
No brainer, exactly. It was, yeah. If I'd been drinking a cup of tea, I think I would have just sprayed all over the wall when I said I'm available. I was like, yeah. So yeah, he signed up.
So who's the poor soul that's losing their driving hours then at Mantis Rekkers shops? Okay,
because that was the idea.
Okay.
It was I was basically there to just help with the setups and things like that, and in case anybody was sick.
I do agree. Swapping Mantis in for you is definitely the smart choice.
No, I swapped in for Saba, cheeky. yeah, it's a good fit actually. We've been doing some work all this week actually, and yeah, the car is slowly but surely went from being a pretty good car to a really decent one to a very good car in a matter of about three or four setup changes. So that's all. So we're in a good place anyway. The times were good, but the guys are going to take it a little bit further now, so happy about that. Really happy about that.
So what's the aim then, Nick? You got P3 last time out in Silverstone. We don't talk about Indianapolis because that was unfortunate. So can you go one better? P2 possible, or are you looking to take down Varga?
Yeah, P2's the target. stretch target is P1, obviously, but P2 is our target. Well, we've made no bones about that within the team, and we think tactically the way we're going to drive the race, it's definitely on. So obviously you got to take into consideration anything can happen in the race. But all things considered, if we can stay clean and and the guys drive to their best and drive to what they know they can do, I think P2 is definitely on. We're quite happy to challenge Drillers and ASG on, so let's go for it. That's what we're saying.
Can I ask something about the GTE car, by the way? Because I've spotted your new driver from Finland that you talked about the other day to us more privately. But
how do you pronounce it?
Mickey Yuppie. I can't. No, Peter told us in the break, but we've forgotten. Well, I've forgotten already.
You are Mickey Yuppie.
Tell us a little bit about the story behind that one, and how that all came about as well. Because I personally have never heard of him actually.
He's Wojciech's driver from Varga.
All right.
So you know how Varga and Juices work well, and
hang on, Nick. So you stole a driver from Team Rookie Monster. Now you're stealing drivers from Varga.
We're not stealing. We're a joint effort.
When's Marcel Chinchik joining the team?
Next week. Well, the story behind the Vargal connection is Daniel and Wojciech drove for Varga a year and a half ago, I think it was, wasn't it? And obviously one of the, like myself and Wojciech really get on well. We're just crazy fun. And he won one of the GT Challenge races last year while I was like really ill in bed, and he won the race on the Monday, and I didn't recover enough to see the race until the Wednesday. And he's messaged and dedicated it to me and everything. It was pretty emotional, like, but he's a great driver, great friend, and obviously behind when he wasn't driving for Juices, he was part of the Varga setup. And obviously they entered other leagues, and so he joined the number 69 car, the Varga Porsche 911, and we'll work hand in glove basically. And a couple of weeks back, Wojciech qualified first in the 911, Adam qualified second in the 911. Wojciech won in the 911 and Adam finished second. So it was a Varga 1-2 in qualifying and a Varga 1-2 in the race. So that's how it is. It's like a joint effort basically.
So I do want to ask as well, Nick.
Yeah. We're
looking at the track, specifically the LMP2 cards, and it looks very, very bumpy out there.
It is.
Can you feel it? How much can you feel?
Obviously not as much as some people who are in motion rigs, but you can feel it through the wheel. You know, I've got a TS XW, which is, I've got it running quite high, and it certainly throws the wheel left and right. So you've got to really grip going through, obviously turn 1, but especially turn 17 and Sunset. And there's a certain bump if you try and be greedy on the entry, you'll slide out slightly, and there's a bump right in the middle of the turn, right on the apex, and it'll just throw you. It'll just hit your wheel. Doesn't matter how soft or whatever you've got there set up. It'll just throw your car, and you'll go sideways into the bottom wall. So your entry's got to be really good. I'll be surprised if you don't see that happen tonight. These guys are really pushing. I'll be very surprised. But if you enter the corner correctly, it'll be bumpy, but it'll be manageable, and you can really power out, and that's where the time's gained. Obviously, you can gain it throughout the track, but I think turn 1, turn 17, I think the hard braking corners, if you can get them right and get a good exit, that's how you build the lap up, obviously. But it's going to be a difficult race, difficult qualifying session. It's going to be great to watch, I think. I think it's going to be fantastic to watch, but you can see some of the differences in the setups from guys. Some cars are a little softer, some cars are a little stiffer on the front, but it's balancing. Obviously, if you're too hard on the rear, you'll probably spin out because the rear just won't be able to answer what the front's asking it to do as you turn in.
I mean, on that note, is something that I wanted to ask, which is, are the bumps only in the final corner in turn 1, or is it scattered around the track? And on top of that, how much have you had to compromise your setup in terms of how stiff your suspension is?
If you look at the hairpin, you'll see, because of the way the braking is, and obviously in real life, it's wearing out the road surface as you go in. And one of the main things with the track is that the concrete slabs that made up the runways have not been replaced. It's natural. I think there'd be an absolute uproar locally if, and in the race paddocks, if they did replace or relay any parts of the track. That's what makes it unique, because the bumps have been formed over the years of racing. And I think that's what makes it so special. And, especially the fan groups that turn up at turn 10, they're famous. It's one of the great spectacles when the 1,000 miles of Sebring's on. But the bumps are all over the track. Some are worse. Obviously, the worst ones are in the braking zone, simply because of the pressure put on that part of the track from all the cars coming to whatever mile an hour or kilometers an hour down to the corner speed. So you'll see it all the way through the race. The cars will just be jumping and bumping. Even on the front stretch, you can see the front ends going, and the car's never stable. If you relax your hand grip on the wheel, you will go. Simple as that. You will go.
Well, Nick, we hope that the Deuces motorsport cars can survive as well as the Sebring International circuit has over the years, and best of luck in practice and for the whole race weekend.
Yep, thank you very much, and have a good one, guys. I'll see how the boys are doing. Cheers now. Bye.
I see you and the newcomer in as high spirits as ever.
Yeah, absolutely. He always seems to be. Anyway, and clearly feeling very positive about his team's chances for this weekend. They've got two very good cars. Obviously, we saw... I hesitate to call, but I think it might be worth calling it a masterclass in defending from Toon Lauer, if you remember from the final hour of the race 1 month ago in Silverstone. He was holding off a number of really, really very, very good drivers and very good teams towards the end of that race. And for someone who's so young, I think he's 16 years old, 15 years old, something like that, really not very old at all, and really held up to the challenge extremely well, like he'd been doing it for 10, 20 years really. So really good drive from him late on last week, but they're hoping to get their GT car back on track, I think, really at this point, because they've not had a good year with it. They didn't even appear at the Silverstone race because they didn't have enough people to cover the car, but Indianapolis didn't go well for them either, so they've only actually got 2 points from the season so far, and they're going to look to try and get their season back on track a little bit here at Sebring, and they've got all of the right drivers, they've got the right team set up, they've got the right everything really to make that happen, I think.
Yeah, we saw some incredible last hour defences back at Silverstone last month, and who knows if we'll see more of the same here at Sebring. To be honest, I'd expect so, but then again, this is one of the trickiest circuits, if not the trickiest circuit on the calendar. So it's the case of, I think any kind of differences in skill kind of get extended. But we were talking to Nick Newcomb, and we were talking about how he stole drivers from Team Rookie Monsters, and I don't think there's anyone better than to answer those claims than the man from Team Rookie Monsters himself, which is Mr. Simon Marshall. Simon, welcome to the interview room. We were just talking to Nick and about how he stole Mantis Wreckers from Team Rookie Monsters. Do you have anything you want to say about this entire topic?
Hello guys. No, I was just listening into the stream and I thought I'd come and say hello, see how you guys are getting on. And I kind of took the bait a little bit. I just thought I'd, just explain the situation a little bit more from my point of view as well.
So, with regards then to Matt, actually, just in regards generally, how come we aren't seeing Team Rookie Monsters racing this season? Because I'm sure it's not as we joked about on stream with regards to all of you taking the dating advice from Le Mans.
Well, Le Mans wasn't the best race for us. I think we finished P11, and I think, but we still managed to, with that really poor result, we still managed to kind of win the season overall. And it's a really big commitment doing, I think it's at the time it was planned for 6 24-hour races. And I think everyone's just exhausted. Maximum respect to all these competitors, because it's not just the 24-hour races, it's the practice, all the setup work that goes into it. And I just think at the point I asked, everyone was too exhausted after their last season to go again, I think once the season's now started, there's been a couple of drivers who are looking for seats, so could I have maybe scraped a car together? Possibly. But at the time I asked, everyone was like, no way, Jose. So, yeah, no problem with other drivers going to drive for other teams. It's good to see them being a part and wanting to be a part of GTR 24.
It's good to have them here, actually. I'm glad that you are lending out drivers to different teams. So you mentioned that you get a bit of interest bubbling up with people searching around for different drivers and so on. So is there an outside possibility that we could see Rookie Monsters return maybe this season, maybe next, or some point in the future maybe?
Yeah, there's always a never say never. We're always looking to do series. One of the biggest attractions for us was going to the LAN event. I think we went in 2018, and we didn't want to go back in 2019. Unfortunately, circumstances meant that we couldn't, with the COVID, etc. So maybe I've got my years mixed up, but I think I've got my years mixed up. But essentially, we couldn't go. The LAN event was cancelled. We're well up for going to a LAN event, and that's kind of what the biggest attraction for us at GTR 24 is, that LAN event. Again, I don't know if it's happening or not. I imagine it wouldn't do, but never say never.
We could talk about it in a moment's time, but it's up for discussion, I suppose, because of everything that's going on, and the fact it's still, 7 months in the future, or 7.5 months in the future when the 24 hours at Le Mans at the end of the year is going to take place. But yeah, it's good to know that there's a chance maybe that Rookie Monsters can come back. Just one more thing as well from me. I don't want to rub this in too much because it's. I don't know if you like talking about it too much, but if you remember here last season and last year almost to the day, it was the 12 Hours of Sebring, the opener of the 2020 season here for the EEWC. You guys were leading LMP2 for a very long time, but it came to a bit of an unfortunate end. So what are your guys' memories of that particular race, given that it's a year ago in the past now?
Yeah, that still hurts, that still does hurt for sure. And we've done some thinking and some analysing on some of our drivers, and looking back at it, the person who ran out of fuel is actually the person who gets into that zone. There's another zone that certain drivers can get into. I think Ayrton Senna alluded to it once, where you can reach a higher plane and his consciousness just disappears, and it's all just a natural flow. A flow of energy and euphoric feeling that takes over you when you're in that zone. And I think that's just what happened to him. He's the driver who ran out of fuel, who gets into that zone really quickly, and without all his sim hub and all the other things to help him out in terms of fuel management, that he just zoned out and ran out of fuel. And it's a natural thing to do if you can get into that zone. It's not the only one to do it. He won't be the last one to do it. My teammate in another 24 race run out. of fuel. So 8 hours in, and that kind of let us down as well. So he's not the only one to do it, and I'm sure other people do it as well.
Yes, certainly. It's not you're not alone in that one. I'm sure. We'll let you go now, Simon. It's great to hear from you, and great to have a little chat with you up here in practice at the moment. So thanks very much for joining us, and I wish you luck for the future. Thanks for coming to talk to us.
No worries at all. Thank you.
There you go, Simon Marshall from Team Rookie Monsters. Good to chat to some of these guys, and I believe since we were on the subject of the LAN event a moment ago, we'll have a bit of a discussion about it. Since we're in practice, got a bit of time, so we'll do it. I believe Peter's now going to be heard by the world, and so he can come on and talk a little bit about it, because he knows more than me or any of us to do really about this particular situation. So Peter, what can you tell us about that particular event?
We are planning to have a physical event for 2021. It is still, like always, the last weekend of October, specifically chosen because that's the weekend where we usually change from summertime to wintertime, which gives us an extra hour, which is always nice to have in the planning of that kind of stuff. But yeah, we are planning for it. There's several things not directly related to the entire COVID situation that's in the way right now. The arena is moved now from Viborg. We're not going back to Viborg. Logistics and other issues kind of came in the way. We're back in Middelfart, but not at the venue where we used to be in Middelfart. We are in a new, much larger arena. The plan, I'm going to say the plan now, because it's not now. I can't guarantee that any of this comes to fruition, but we are really working hard on it, and there's a lot of good vibes around this. Of course, everyone is trying to do like physical events in everything again, so everyone is on their toes as soon as we start talking about what this is going to be. So we got an area the size of 3 handball courts. If you know that 20 by 40 meters. With some extra space around them. There's grandstands, there's room for stages, there's one room with a special stage. These 3 arenas are connected to each other, so we're going to have drivers and teams in their sort of paddock area in one hall, and just diagonal to that, or completely opposite to that, we're going to have all the sim rigs. So there's going to be a way to walk from the team's paddock to the sim rigs. But the reason why we do it like that is because we want the guys that come to see this and the spectators to kind of have to go through the middle arena as well when they kind of go back and forth from sort of watching the sim rigs and going to the paddock area to talk to the teams. That middle area is going to be an exhibition area. We're planning on having like a sort of a men's lifestyle exhibition in that area with some car exhibitions, mountain bikes, skiing equipment. Whiskey tasting. I don't know what kind of people we're going to have there yet, but that is the plan, and everyone's sort of buying into that. Yeah.
Interject with a possible idea. It sounds like there's space. What are the possibilities of introducing a adult-sized bouncy castle?
I have no idea, but I think we're more kind of going for maybe an RC track, an indoor boogie RC track. I think we're going for who else were we talking to? But there's a lot of ideas on the table right now. I'm in the phase right now of doing all of the 3D drawings and setting up all of the sales material to this before we kind of start going out to the local companies here, and of course also contacting every single one of our previous partners, which is I think more than 30 now. So there's a lot of potential here, and for the first time since we are combining this with this sort of men's lifestyle thing, it's going to be other gaming stuff as well. But since we are combining it, it's looking like a really good chance that we will have quite high spectator numbers coming to the venue. We've also set it up so that all of the exhibitionists have to run events at their own booths during the event. So they'll be booking in like from at this hour from 11 to 12 we're going to have this kind of event at our booth, and then the next exhibition will have their event at another hour. They're booking in like that and having their own sort of mini events going on during the entire race as well. So there's going to be so much going on besides the racing itself. Fabulous. We're gonna have in the main hall with the sim rigs and the spectator stands. We're going to have a set of Danish commentators for the local people and the spectators coming in. That's going to be Danish spectators in there. We're going to have you guys on a separate, like, dedicated stage in the paddock area instead. So when you're in the paddock area, it's international area. When you're out by the drivers, it's sort of more targeted towards giving the spectators something interesting to look at. And yeah, we have good experiences now. We're trying to control the crowd and keep them and their voices down. So it's only the spectators and controlling the volume of spectators and everything. It was working out pretty well in 2019 in Viborg. I think actually that's one of the things that we didn't get complaints about, because everything else was just a mess. But no drivers actually complained about any spectators or any noise being in the drivers' areas. That was positive. I think if you want to make it something that spectators will want to come and watch, it's important for people to be able to get, like, not right beside the sim rigs, but at least close to the sim rigs and see what kind of equipment it is, and kind of get fascinated by, oh my God, what a lot of money these guys dump into their really interesting hobby here. If you get what I mean.
Yeah. However, I think a little bit like Simon Marshall mentioned, we in the production room, we've kind of entered that new plane, that phase where we've just got so fascinated, so hooked up by the prospect of the LAN event in October that we've almost forgotten that we had an ad break. So, without further ado, we're going to throw to said ad break before jumping into the second of the 3 hours of official practice here for round 3 of the Endurance E-Racing Championship at Sebring.
The 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship Round 3, 12 Hours of Sebring is brought to you in partnership with ESTV, Leak Gaming, SimLab, Motorvision.tv, Global Flix, Racing for Green, Viper Gaming, and AMD Ryzen Radeon.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
Do you want to bring us in, Ewan?
Hello everybody and welcome back to the practice session. 1 hour in at the moment, 2 hours to go for the 12 Hours of Sebring, which is this weekend. You can catch it midday CET. We're very much looking forward to it. Yusuf bin Sahel will be back a little bit later on. He's just having a bit of dinner, as you can imagine. And now I'm Ewan O'Leary. I'm joined by Alex Goldschmidt for the moment. Alex, I hope you're well. I hope you're looking forward to this weekend. Should be a good few days of racing. I'm certainly looking forward to it.
Yeah, qualifying is going to be rather interesting tomorrow night, Ewan. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to GTR 24H. Firstly, I have to give another big shout out. I did this on social media when this went live. Obviously, Yusuf and I did that fantastic sort of like introduction, but the person that really made it sparkle, we've just heard from Mr. Peter Munkholm, spent well over 25 plus hours on that. But we have to give him credit. It was absolutely brilliant. But yeah, Sebring, here with the Florida sunshine, a very tricky circuit, and I do have to say something here. I spotted this when I actually watched this, the sort of like the 32-minute sort of introduction of when Yusuf said, well, what didn't we see at Silverstone and what can we expect at Sebring? Well, funny enough, there was a camera on one of the practice sessions overlooking the entirety of Sunset Bend and coming through Sunset Bend, spinning around, going through the corner, and as I say the words, you'll end up in the barriers. It was the 67 Volante Aston Martin. But yeah, a fantastic circuit, 3.7 miles, just over 5.95 kilometres, steeped in motorsport tradition. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one. Back stateside, but yeah, it's got so much character. And when you, we're going to bring a bit of technical insight from my perspective, having been in the automotive industry for 20 plus years. When you have a car that has very low profile tyres and you've got very stiff suspension, the biggest thing is that the suspension travel and the way that the tyre compressors goes over the bumps is if there's less tyre profile and there's less sort of rebound on the shock absorbers, the first thing that you're going to do is every single bone in your body is going to be shaking like a skeleton. So if you're in a GT3 or a GTE car, things are going to be a little bit more comfortable on the force feedback.
I'm so glad you're here to and actually know that, Alex, because I have not got a clue, honestly. And Yusuf said he didn't have much more of an idea than me. So, yeah, I'm very glad you do know these things because it's very important around here at Sebring. As we've mentioned throughout the day, the bumps are the main feature, really, and that's why we've been talking about them, or I was talking about them a little bit earlier on with Yusuf, of course. But he said the sunshine of Florida a little bit earlier on. But I would put an asterisk next to that a little bit because we did receive a weather forecast yesterday and it didn't look particularly beach weather, I have to say. Around noon, around 2 p.m, about 2 hours into the race, it was forecast to rain, but obviously that was about nearly a week prior to the actual event happening, so it might change by then. But Florida this time of year, I guess it's cold, rainy season. It's not I don't know, I wouldn't really call it that quite, but you do get these kind of freak rainstorms sometimes that are really quite heavy, and you see in the Sebring 12 hours, which is not a dissimilar time to this in terms of the time of year, it rains, I would say, maybe once every 2 or 3 years, really, certainly in the last few years anyway. So we could see some rain this weekend, and we could see sunshine all in the same race. That's the kind of weather conditions that we're expecting. It changes all very quickly.
It always does. Every single racetrack I think that we've got on this calendar has its own weather microclimate, and when it rains, the heavens do quite literally open, and that can cause, as there's been a big off for Unison Racing coming out of the exit of Sunset Bend, and behind the wheel of that car at the moment is Alexei Maizin, who's just gone into the pits. I've actually seen it where, and following them is actually, funnily enough, the number 41 Mugen Sim Racing McLaren 650 that we had, was on the verge of victory at Indianapolis a couple of months ago, and then the double downshift happened. The less said about that to that team, the better at this particular moment. But yeah, every single track, you have to factor in weather. You can't. I mean, the thing is here on GTR 24H, we have to keep it as real as possible. If there is a possibility of rain, we saw that in the qualifying session at Silverstone in the night time, if memory serves me correctly, Ewan. So the rain can come at any time, but the other thing is that if you get the reverse of that with the hot climate, as that was definitely straight on for the Mugen Sim Racing car I've just seen there, going into one of the faster parts of the circuit, the biggest thing that they'll have to worry about is, again, coolant temperatures. Higher temperatures, incredibly crucial, because with the different types of surface variation, where bits have been resurfaced, you'll have all the bumps, the undulation. Also, when you're going heavily into the braking zone, now we'll have a look at the Unison Racing 717 GT3 crew, the leading Aston Martin, which has a BOP change, courtesy of Studio 397. The whole of the GT3 field have had BOP changes, and you can just see by going down, I think that is down in towards Bishop Bend possibly, that the amount of undulation, you can literally see the way that the shock absorbers on that Aston Martin are just trying to they're having an extra bit of compression, and the driver's trying to keep it under control. But then you throw it into Sunset Bend, and you've got to, as I said in the preview, you've got to have a bit of cojones to get through this track, and that was a lot neater that time for Alexei on this particular occasion. But there is so many variables here at Sebring, and you look at the people that have won this race before, the manufacturers like Porsche, Ferrari, Jaguar, amongst others. So there's so much history. There was definitely one LMP car that was just decided to have a moment trying to get out from behind the wall here at the pit lane. A very different pit lane to whatever we see here. And for anyone that's ever watched the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Challenge, the funny thing is at Sebring, the minute they say the words behind the wall, that spells disaster for a team, and that could be the same thing here.
Yeah, it certainly could have. Behind the wall, referring to if you don't know, but I presume most of the people watching this do, but I'll explain it anyway. It's because on these American circuits, it's not really like one of the European ones where you've got the garage in front of your pit bay where you stop and service the car normally. It is a wall, hence behind the wall. So the garages are behind the wall. You have to go in like behind a little inlet, which you just saw there. And I've seen a number of cars actually hit on their way out of the garages, hit the little posts or the wall either side of the opening to get out onto the real pit lane and then out onto the circuit. So if you go into the garage or going behind the wall, as you say, it does spell trouble, because you don't tend to make up laps and laps around these particular races, because the field's so close. It's very, very difficult to get that kind of thing. But we were talking about GT3 a little bit earlier on, and we were just mentioning minute there. It won't be the first time we'll see these cars nose to, it won't be the last time we see these cars nose to tail this weekend. We saw them having very similar moments coming out of corners, nose to tail and whatever. It's really, really close in that category. And even though Unison Racing did win, or have won, both of the opening 2 rounds of this season at Indianapolis and Silverstone, that doesn't really tell the whole story. It's been very, very close so far. We've got Mugen Sim Racing involved, Danish Racing League, One Move Esport even got a podium last time out at Silverstone, Glam Racing 2 4th places. So I reckon all 5 of those cars really have got a shot at winning, maybe not just this race, but even the championship as well.
I think so. I mean, Glam Racing is probably the outside bet here.
Yeah.
We've spoken to Callum Wilson quite a few times, amongst others. So I think they've had a lot of bad luck. Let's be honest with Glam Racing. They've, we got Henry Collar, Lee Russell, and Callum Wilson, just some of the drivers there. It's difficult to sort of like really pick a winner because we're only 1/3 of our way. We're in the first half of that second third of the season, and it's only when we get to the Nürburgring. I think it's the 24th to the 26th of June, which, and then we got the 24-hour one-off invitational for the Nürburgring Nordschleife. And I still remember when you and Ossi and Puhaka were doing the graveyard stint, we had that fantastic battle for about, the best part of 2.5 to 3 hours. I remember when Nick signed me up to do the EEWC this year, he said, just watch this. And I literally, I'll be honest, Nick, I didn't watch the whole 3 hours because I think it was like about midnight when I started watching it. The first half an hour, oh my God, I was just like this. I went, that's what you call a 24-hour race. But you and Yusuf asked a question. I think I might have the answer. Now, there is one GTE car not here tonight, HM Engineering in the Callaway Corvette C7R. Well, funnily enough, the R Factor 2 GT Pro Series gets underway next week. One of the drivers, well, actually, 2 of the drivers running under the HM Engineering stable. And one of them, which Yusuf likened this driver to have a pretty cool American-sounding racing name. Ferris Stanley is on that grid. So that could be part of the puzzle, if I'm honest with you. I don't know what the completing parts of said puzzle would be, as the 67 Volantes just had a major off. It's good to get these mistakes out of the way now, wouldn't you say, Ewan?
Well, yeah, it certainly matters less at this point. Obviously, it's just practice at the moment. It's not really like real life either, where if you do throw the car off in a big way, like we saw actually in the break, we were talking about a big off for somebody at turn 1, which really is a big off, and we'll talk about that as we go along as well in a moment. But really, it doesn't matter too much. You just reset to the pit lane again and just go again. So just getting the mistakes out of the way now is kind of a good thing, and it's good to learn to make these mistakes, to try and do it better for the race, especially when it comes to incidents in traffic. I'm expecting to see a couple. I haven't actually spotted any so far, which is quite rare, I must say. Not because of the standard of driving, but it's because just people just feeling their way around, trying to figure out where you can pass cars. Some places it's a bit risky, and it's talked about sometimes. If you're skilled, you can get away with it. If not, then maybe you can't. So people in practice may be like, oh well, I'll give this a go. See if this move down here will work. Maybe go around the outside there, I can hold it there, or something like that. If you learn this in practice and you find out that you go spearing off into the wall and lose 3 of your wheels, then it's fine, because it's just practice. So you can reset to the pits and go again. But if it's in the race, then that's a real problem, and that's why these guys are out there. And I think it's really important, not because these guys don't know the circuit, they know what they're doing. They don't need to practice consistency over a stint. They can already do that, really. It's just getting the hundredths and figuring your way through traffic, because when you think about it, shaving hundredths off your lap time takes a very long time, and it doesn't gain you very much. But gaining time in traffic, being efficient in traffic, is half the story, I would say, maybe more, of winning an endurance race, especially a multi-class one like this.
Yeah, very true, you, and especially when the biggest compromise you have to make is the setup, and that's for every single driver. They'll have to have that sort of, so if it's a 3 or a 4 driver crew, you've got to compensate for everybody. And someone might not like this particular handling characteristic that might favour another driver, so they'll offset the bias accordingly. Funnily enough, I've just had a Pinterest link sent to me saying about the big rain deluge in 1965. And apparently in 90 minutes, they had 5 inches of rain. And the image on the Pinterest post has got a chaparral surfing the waves, as the post said, where the late, great Carroll Shelby, who was still wearing his traditional Stetson hat, which he wore right up until his passing days, and Cobra shirt, because obviously before Carroll Shelby got involved with Ford Motor Company with the GT40 project, when the Ford Motor Company went to war with Ferrari after the Italians didn't like Ford muscling in on their territory at Maranello.
Sorry to interrupt, Alex.
Yeah.
Can we agree this car actually has a bow wave? And not only does it have a bow wave, it actually has a bow wave that's so big I wouldn't be standing near it when it comes by you, because that might actually tilt you.
You know what? The funny thing is, Peter's just talked to me.
I'm on that. They can hear me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the thing is, you remember those sort of slides that you see at the theme parks, Peter, where you get that log ride? It's like that. Like literally, you get the bow wave, and it just literally hits everybody.
Yeah.
That is right. That's exactly what that's like. It's one of those log flume rides at the adventure playground or the theme park, and then all of a sudden people get saturated, and you see so many of it, like clips being put together on TikTok or Instagram stories or whatever.
I didn't believe this because I was looking up various images to put in the intro video that you did, and I heard of this race before, and it was introduced as the 12 hours of the Sebring Yacht Club.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing
and
is,
I didn't believe how bad it was until I saw these images, and there's more images. Like this is not the only. Like this is down the. I think it's right at the pit entry, just after Sunset Bend.
Yeah.
And it's not only there; it's the entire track at this level, at this depth of water. It's a lake, basically.
All you need is a canoe and some paddles, Peter, and you'd be well away there. Well, we digress, but I think you and that can just show how quickly the weather can change. We've already talked about the weather, but yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I think that we've got an opportunity for having another great 12-hour race here, but then the real hard work starts after. What is effectively going to be a 3 and a bit month break, and these drivers will be looking at every single way. I talked about compromising the setup, and then they're going to have to start getting ready for the second half of the season, the business end of the 2021 EEWC season here on GTR 24H, and it's so difficult to sort of like call a winner to that for this weekend when we go lights out at 12 o'clock Central European time on Saturday.
Yeah, it's very difficult to call a winner for any of these classes, really. We're going to have to at some point, I guess, make our predictions. But at some point throughout practice. But you say we're nearly halfway through the season. It seems a little bit strange to be saying that. We're in the first weekend of March, and we're halfway through the season. It's quite remarkable. Not in terms of hours, by the way, in terms of rounds. So this is round 3 of 6. We've still got 3 more rounds to go, but 2 of those are 24-hour races. So when we finish Nürburgring next time out, we will be halfway in terms of hours. But in terms of the rounds, this is halfway at the end of, the first week of March, which is quite strange to think about, really, because this time last year we hadn't had a single round of the EEWC just yet. This was the race. The Sebring 12 hours was the opener for 2020, and we've already had 24 hours of racing for these guys to get their teeth into. But that's the whole kind of idea of the calendar here at the EEWC for this season, is to get people racing early, because not just endurance racing, but any series of any kind of note really is racing this early. It was the second week of January and we had our first race in Indianapolis, but people say in real life, obviously, there's a bit of a winter break and whatever. And in sim racing, we sort of follow the mould a little bit too strictly at times. We can tend to follow real world a little bit too closely sometimes. So, kind of ripping up the rule book a little bit with this one, and just going in straight away the 2nd of January. It's not like there's much else to do. But yeah, I mean, it's great to have so many rounds so early, and I'm glad about that, really. But it's been wonderfully unpredictable so far, and that's what you want, really. You don't want somebody running away all the time. I guess in LMP2 there has been Varga Sim Racing have won the first 2 races in that category, and Drillers Esports have won the first 2 in Hypercar as well. But the 2 GT category, have been really interesting so far, and even in LMP2 I think Drillers Esports are capable of getting near Varga. Maybe that's just me being a little bit hopeful, but no, I really think they can. I really think they can go for it, Drillers.
I think there is every possibility. The thing is that if Varga go into the final round at Le Mans in late October, and Drillers Pinsim Esports are in striking distance, there is every possibility. And this is one of the things I always like to say. It could be Varga Sim Racing's title to lose, because if you have a double points round at the end of the season, that makes things that little bit more interesting, and all that Drillers need to do is keep it consistent. Keep having those top 3 finishes, even if it's not a victory, because they'll be there, and then it will be that sort of the mental games at Le Mans will truly start then, and that's what's really something that I'm looking forward to with great anticipation, because you want a title to go down to the wire. You don't want people getting to within a round of the championship still to go. You want it to go to the wire. You want them to fight and claw back every inch for, every single point is well earned. And the biggest thing is that these race completion bonus points are going to be ultra helpful as well, because that could make the difference.
Yeah, just it kind of entices you to finish the race, really, because when you're down it, particularly like in the classes like LMP2 and GTE, where there are actually more cars than points available. In terms of if you finish the race, you could end up with no points for actually finishing, and that's not very motivating. If you've had a particularly bad race, say you've had a crash in the 2nd hour or something, there's not much encouragement to carry on. And I know it's only 1 point, but we keep saying it could be crucial at the end, and it just keep people hoping, it keeps people in the race. And then when you're just racing for that 1 point, you might have a couple of guys in front of you have a bit of an issue themselves, and then you pick up couple more places, and you've got a couple more points as well. So you never know. It just gives people a real incentive to just soldier on in these races, and I think it's a good idea, even though I don't think it's worth any more than that 1 point that it's given, but I think it is a good idea. And as you say, they could be important. So far there aren't many zeros in that completed race column, if I'm honest. In GT3 we've had every single car finish every single race. In LMP2 only 1 car has not finished for each race, and it was the same one, unfortunately. But we're seeing a lot of these guys get to the end, and I think it might be a little bit partially down to the fact that you just get a bonus point, and that is a good thing.
Yeah, I think that just gives the teams and the drivers a bit more impetus to push that a little bit harder, but not in terms of the mechanical sympathy of the cars that they're driving, because we all know that technical issues can happen, and it's not just from the cars actually out on the circuit. With the amount of equipment that people are using when it comes to the rigs, the steering wheel, the force feedback. There's so much equipment that's used in sim racing these days. I mean, when I started commentating on sim racing back in May of last year, I was completely green when it came to understanding how much equipment you actually need. And then my eyes, Ewan, have well and truly been opened. And the thing is, I speak to some of my friends who compete in other leagues, and they go, yeah, well, I spent this much on my PC, and I spent this much on, this steering wheel or this sim rig. And I just think, hang on a second, they've spent the equivalent of what my car's currently worth, and it's sitting either in a room or in a man cave or in their office at home. it really has opened my eyes, and to be honest with you, it just shows how ultra competitive and how ultra high tech sim racing now has truly become in the last couple of years or so.
Yeah, it really has. It's stepped up certainly in the last year. I can definitely say that from even my own experience that I've not been around for an awfully long time in the sim racing business, but I can see for myself how much it's changed. I know that people around GTR 24/8, this was created, or this organisation was created back in 2007, and you think how much has changed in the sim racing world and I guess the real world as well, if you want to think about it like that. In the last 14 years, it's been quite remarkable, really. It really has changed. But the beauty of it as well is that you can spend thousands of pounds on whatever it is that you're actually doing, and it doesn't really matter if you've spent £1,000 or if you spent 100 on a wheel, because you'll still be as competitive. It doesn't really need to win kind of thing, is it really? Like you see on some games that are a little bit more kind of sit down and do whatever. It's like it's serious, but you don't have to pay thousands of pounds to get a good ring and then win. You don't like, it's not like real life where you have to like get the best car and that costs the most money and whatever. It's not like that really, because you can still race with very competitively with someone who might have spent a lot more money or a lot less money than you. I guess the experience does increase if you spend a little bit more money, but it's pace-wise, it doesn't really affect very much at all. So no, I think that's a great thing, really. One of the beauties of sim racing that's certainly come into the minds of a lot of people in the last year, I would say.
Yeah, myself included. Well, I think really we're getting to within the last half hour of the session, so we'll be right back after a commercial break.
The 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship Round 3, 12 Hours of Sebring is brought to you in partnership with ESTV, Leak Gaming, SimLab, MotorVision.tv, Global Flix, Racing for Green, Viper Gaming, and AMD Ryzen Radeon.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
you're on.
Hello everyone and welcome back to GTR24H for free practice for the forthcoming third round of the 2021 season, the 12 Hours of Sebring. Alex Goldschmidt and Ewan O'Leary back with you for the next half an hour or so. Ewan, I understand that there is a team that we did know under a previous alias, but there has been a team name change for round 3, I understand, LMP2?
Yeah, in LMP2 we've had a bit of a change, just to update everyone who might not be so in the loop maybe with the happenings that have been since the last race back in Silverstone. We've had a bit of a team name change, as you say. So Fair Racing team, we've had a pretty good season so far, actually, getting a third place and a fourth so far. I've actually changed their name to DSG, so I've already forgotten what it stands for, but we were talking about it a moment ago in the break. Yeah, they've changed the name. It's just a bit of a change, and they're one of the front runners. So I just thought I'd mention it. They've actually disappeared from the practice. They've done their practice and they've gone now. So they'll be back for qualifying tomorrow. Will the Dutch team, but yeah, Fair Racing team with a bit of a name change to DSG, which they'll be known as from now on.
So for those wondering about the schedule for this weekend for the third round of the 2021 season, qualifying gets underway. Part 1 of the 2 parts of qualifying at 7 p.m. Central European time tomorrow night, and then 9:30 p.m. will be the second half, and then the race kick-starts for 12 hours at 12 noon on Saturday the 6th of March. Please don't forget to follow us on all relevant social medias, and if you do want to find out more about the championship itself, maybe even if you out there think you want to join us here at GTR24H, head to gtr24h.org. That is our official website. Also, a warm welcome to everyone listening to GTR24H radio. So even during the commercial breaks that we actually have here on the live stream, they do actually listen to our chats as well. So quite a few listeners last time out at Silverstone. So yeah. But a lot of drivers still making their way around the circuit. Track temperature still rather not. I wouldn't call it spicy because it's not over 20 degrees on the track yet, but it's still rather hot. And these tyres are quite literally being tortured around here, Ewan.
Yeah, they certainly will be over hour-long stints and double stints and whatever these guys are going to have to contend with throughout the race. So yeah, it's going to be a big challenge for drivers and tyres alike, I suppose. But we're in practice at the moment. We've got a bit of time, so we've been asking around for a couple of interviews, and we've got one at the moment. Someone waiting in the green room. We won't keep him waiting for too much longer because he's been waiting for a good 5 minutes now. So we'll bring him in. Here he just drag him now. There we go, Matthias Blom from the number 13 Danish Racing League GT3 team. Just giving the power to talk. There we go. Joining us now. Welcome along, Matthias. Good to see you back once again. Yeah, how's things going within the team right now? How are you guys preparing for Sebring? And yeah, how confident are you heading into the race weekend?
Yeah, hello, and the confidence for our team is very good, to be honest. We're looking very good on the pace in this practice. We don't know if the other guys are sandbagging, but the times and the lap times are pretty good.
Yeah, now back in Silverstone, I'm afraid there was a heartbreak for you guys. I'm afraid it was probably not too nice to go over again. But what was the general mood in the camp after the race? Because you had that real kind of heartbreaking hardware failure for Sebastian Hove, I believe it was, who was driving at the time. You were on for a good result. In the end, it wasn't as good as you were hoping for. But how did you guys kind of regroup after that? And what was the feeling after that particular race?
The feeling after the race was very heartbreaking. To be honest, I cried a little bit, and the other guys did as well. We had a break, drove some on Sebring, and then we had a team meeting talking about all the things and stuff. And yeah, it was very heartbreaking. I actually had the champagne ready to go to the race, but yeah, still crying a little bit talking about it.
It wasn't it's not a nice way to have your race end. Well, not end, but have the possibility of a race win taken away, I suppose. Looking ahead a little bit, or looking at the first two races as a whole, you've got third place in the championship at the moment, 23 points adrift from Unison Racing, who've won both of the first two races actually. So heading into Sebring now, what are your chances of maybe beating those guys in this one? They've won two races so far, but can you be the second race winner of this season at Sebring?
We can, yeah, but they haven't been so nice to show the pace in this practice. They haven't driven that much, so we actually don't know how fast they are on this track. So, but yeah, we're feeling really good for it. So we hope we will beat them, and they will be slower than us for once.
I guess qualifying will reveal all tomorrow in a way. And I mentioned the third in the championship. Have your aims really changed for this season? Are you still going for the title at the end in Le Mans in October?
We talked about that at the team meeting. We talked about changing the goal, but in the end, we're here to have fun and win. So the goal hasn't changed. We just have a harder route to get to the goal.
Yeah, I suppose so. We wish you all the best with it. It's been great to watch you so far, and I'm sure it will be thoroughly enjoyable once again here in Sebring. Matthias, thanks very much for coming to talk to us. It's been great to hear from you, and good luck to you and the team for the Sebring 12 Hours this weekend.
Thank you very much.
There we go, that's Matthias Blom from the number 13 Danish Racing League team. Good to hear from a couple of the drivers, as I was saying. As I was just mentioning to Matthias, they've had a decent start, but heartbreak at Silverstone, I'm afraid. It's going to be very interesting to see how they pick themselves up and turn themselves around for this one.
Yeah, very much the case. I mean, both Matthias and Sebastian Hope were doing so well. That Ferrari was really, really well planted. But that's the thing with such a high-pressure situation when it comes to these kind of endurance championships. You're going to be put through the ringer. There are going to be points where mistakes do get made, or a mistake of somebody else compromises you in a race, compromises the strategy that the team have been working on for weeks since the previous round. There is so much blood, sweat and tears that goes into what these drivers and these teams do here on GTR 24H. We know that every driver worth their salt that's here competing with us for 2021 will leave no stone unturned. And as we were alluding to earlier when I came on air here, Ewan, it's about just trying to mitigate every single circumstance. You've got to prepare for any eventuality, and we know it through the likes of the World Endurance Championship, the European Le Mans Series, IMSA, other championships such as the Ultimate Cup Series over in France, a lot that use LMPs, whether it be LMP2, LMP3, it doesn't really matter, or a GT car. Everyone is pushing like crazy. They're spending long nights, early mornings. They may even be running simulations. They might have gone, right, okay, let's run on an AI server and we'll do a full 12 hours and we'll see how things pan out. And that's the amount of dedication these teams are putting in. They're putting everything on the line, I guarantee you that much.
Yeah, as you mentioned, they're putting a lot of time into these, and even if you just think about the race distances, it's an endurance series, obviously. It has been, for many years, but in just terms of race hours, you're putting in 96 a year. And that's the equivalent of 3 whole days. No, 4. I was right the first time. 4 whole days. If you imagine doing that in a row, it'd be exhausting, but spread across the year it doesn't seem so bad, but it's still a very long time to be spending. If you think about all the practice time, both away from the official practice and then in qualifying as well, as well as official practice, which are in now, so many hours, so many laps are turned every year that it really does start to add up to quite a lot. It's kind of the whole weekend job, really. You get home on Thursday night, you do a bit of official practice here for the 12 hours, then you go go and for the next night on the Friday night, you go and do qualifying, 2 sessions of 2 hours. If you're driving for the whole of them, then that's already a lot of time. You might have done 5-6 hours of driving before the race has even begun, and then you've got the 12-hour race of Sebring on the Saturday as well. So, and any other leagues that you might have to, any other commitments you have to do. So it does take up an awful lot of time, and the ones that are really willing to put it all on the line are the ones that end up coming out on top, and that's just the way of it, really. And so it will be interesting to see who's put the time in for this particular event. But we just had an interview with Matthias Blom. We're about to have another one here with João Barbosa. Alex, if you don't mind taking this one, I'll drag him up, and we'll have a bit of a chat with João Barbosa of Juices Motorsport Club, the GTE car, of course.
Yeah, good evening, Joel. Thank you for joining us here on GTR 24H. Obviously, good to see you as part of the grid, but good to see the Porsche back. When I spoke with Nick ahead of round 2 at Silverstone, obviously, I think if memory serves me correctly, you ended up in the LMP2 car, didn't you?
Yes, hello everyone. Thanks for having me here. Yes, we did the first race in Indy, but then we didn't have any drivers to put the car running. So I jumped in the LMP2 car, so we did a podium. So that was great in the rain. And now we once again have 2 cars. We have the LMP2 and the GTE, so that's good to have 2 cars back again.
And obviously, I spoke with Nick about this at great length. Obviously, a really good stint from Bolesny that got you guys off on a good foot, but then obviously the dramas in the pit lane, then Nick took over, and then everything went very, very south rather quickly. What was it like getting the chance to go into the sister car with the likes of Luca Gray and Turnlower and give the LMP2 a try?
Honestly, for me, I do like the LMP2 car. For me, it's I prefer the LMP2 than the GTE. Obviously, I am a GTE driver, so much of the experience is in that car. But for me, it's great to be on that car. The guys are great guys. I mean, the team is fantastic. The spirit in the team is great. So it's pretty easy to jump in a new car that I don't know, but they do a great job on setting up the car, so that's not very difficult, I will say. The main point for me in the Silverstone was to be prepared with the traffic stuff, so because I'm not used to laps, guys, I'm used to be lapped. So that was the main thing that I had to prepare, but I think it was a nice race. I have some jumps in the LMP2, and I really like that car.
Yeah, of course. Well, Joel, we'll let you get back to it. Thank you very much for chatting to us here on GTR 24H ahead of the race on Saturday. Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
So a big thank you there to João Barbosa from the number 74 Juices Motorsport Porsche 911 GTE. But one of the things that we've been doing a lot of talking to drivers, but we haven't really sort of looked at what's going on the timing sheets, Ewan, for quite a considerable time. But it's looking rather interesting in terms of the fact that we haven't had any of the hypercars, so we haven't seen Omicron Sim Racing or Pinson Drillers Esports. We'll see them obviously in quali. Hopefully Drillers won't have the dramas that befell them last time out at Silverstone, where they got disqualified from the second session and not following procedure. But yeah, looks like the number 95 is doing pretty good at the top of the timesheets in the LMP2 class, and that's Deke Hackers, who you and Yusuf were trying to decipher what DEAC actually stood for.
Well, we didn't get any closer to the bottom of it, I'm afraid. We've still got no idea. We'll have to, as I mentioned, we'll have to ask somebody and figure that one out. But yeah, they're doing really well at the moment. Varga Sim Racing were in here earlier and dominating as they normally do. With Marcel Chinsik was there, Yuri Toman was as well, doing a bit of practice. But most of the LMP2s, interestingly, have actually gone so far. It was a little bit light on the ground in terms of GTEs and GT3s so far, in the early part of the session, but there were lots of LMP2 LMP2s here, and now it's kind of changed to the opposite way around, really. In the second half of the session, we're starting to see more GTs crop up and go into the session, and less LMP2s. We've only actually got 8 LMP2s at the moment, and that makes up roughly 1/3 of the guys that are actually practicing right now. But yeah, they're getting very close, and they might have actually eclipsed what Varga did a little bit earlier on as the 95 there. Doing very well. As I mentioned in the first hour, not the best results for them in the first 2 rounds, but their pace has been pretty good. To say it's made up of a team who I've mostly not heard of before. I've heard of Roland Zooks, and I've seen him drive LMP2s fairly quickly before, but the others I haven't actually heard of before, but they are very quick, and it's a good unit, good team. They're all very close together in terms of pace. We noted earlier there were 3 in a row on the standings, and that's really what you want. You want the consistency. You don't want somebody blindingly quick and then 2 others who are completely rubbish. You want consistent drivers who are on similar pace, and that's exactly what they've got down there at the 95, and that's going to serve them well in the race.
Yeah, so actually, with regards to the sort of the timesheets at the moment in LMP2, well, actually, it's 2 Deke Hacker drivers that are actually showing as we're fast approaching the last 10.5 minutes of the session. Norbert Jakob and Roland Zooks, literally, well, nigh on half a second apart. But then we've got Gabor Hevesi in the number 22 LMP2 car. That's the Mugen Sim Racing car. That's Matt Webb from E-Team Brit rounding out the top 4. Felipe Barreto in the Ramada Motorsport number 57 rounds out the top 5. Then we got the number 766, the DSR Dream Team LMP2 car. Just behind that. We've also got B32 Racing and then Luca Gray from Juices Motorsport. Obviously, we just spoke to one of the drivers from the sister car, João Barbosa. So that's LMP2. GTE, yes, the very, very comical name that the newcomer, as Yusuf likes to call him. I'm going to start using that terminology now. Juha Makiyupi in the number 74 Porsche. Then it's Jose Berengoya, João Barbosa, and of course our very famed version of Kimi Raikkonen here at GTR 24H that Yusuf always gets a kick out of interviewing. It's Volante Racing's Pauli Ahonen. And then we've got Thanos Kalempekas in the number 67 sister car. That's had a couple of off-track excursions. That's what's showing on GTE at the moment, but GT3, well, we were talking about Glam Racing earlier on. Callum Wilson has set the fastest time at 1:59.177. Quite a considerable time difference between him and also Sebastian Hove from the Danish Racing League Ferrari. Zolt Pribek in the number 41 Mugen Sim Racing McLaren 650S rounds out the top 3 ahead of the number 26 One Move Esports of Ludovic Darqui. Matthias Blom, who you spoke to earlier, Ewan rounds out the top 5 in the number 13 Ferrari. Then Jeff Van Eynen in the number 404. Then we've got Alexei Maizin, not being the greatest practice session for Unison Racing in the 717, but we've talked about this before. They've got those slight erring mistakes out of the way, so to speak.
Yeah, they're currently 2.1 seconds down on Callum Wilson, who's still leading in GT3 in terms of the times. But as we were talking about with Matthias Blom, maybe they're sandbagging. We don't know what fuel. It's a bit like F1 testing, really, isn't it? We don't know what fuel load they're running. We don't know what time. We don't know if they're doing kind of race stints along the way. We don't know whether they're trying to do what we don't. We just don't know what they're doing. So it's kind of difficult to figure out who's really quick from practice. But we will take note of who is quick. Obviously. In LMP2, Diak Hackers have really impressed me, and in GT3 I think it's obvious that Glam Racing are going very well as well, but I'll add as well that maybe they're just going very quick, going in qualifying mode, trying to go as quickly as possible, whereas everybody else just kind of holding something back, keeping something in reserve for the qualifying sessions and for the race that is upcoming. But they can't hide behind their pace for too much longer. And in 24 hours' time, I would say, we will certainly know. We'll be about half an hour into qualifying 2, and we will certainly know who is going to be on top throughout this particular week. But it can all change around during the weekend and so on and so on. But we can't draw too much from practice at the moment, even though it is very impressive to see Callum Wilson up there and nearly half a second ahead of Sebastian Hove. It's 3 1/4 tenths, let's say, from Sebastian Hove, who he's ahead of right now, and that's not a gap that is insignificant at all, especially in the GT3 category that is famed for being possibly the closest of all 4 in the EEWC this season.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we have touched on is balance of performance. Now, Studio 397, we've just had also some breaking news about that, about a new acquisition of Studio 397 by Motorsport Games, which was published, which was actually released in the last 48 hours. One of the biggest things here, the balance of performance. We see it in real-life motorsport, Ewan. It is pretty much an interesting topic for discussion. I know there's a lot of technical side of things that myself and Yusuf, we talked quite a bit about, including, like, say, the way that a shock absorber will rebound and whatever else and everything like that. BOP is always something that spices things up in sports cars, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say, but I would also add that it's a contentious issue because it's never right. Let's be honest. It's never perfect, let's say. And, you're not going to get every single car to the thousandths correct for every single circuit. It is humanly impossible. But what we can do is make it as close as possible for the season's length. And that's what the guys at Studio 397 are trying to do at the very least over a season's length. It should balance out pretty well. And I would say in the categories that it is going quite well. Obviously in the prototypes you can only choose one car, so that doesn't really matter. We're talking about GT3 mainly. Unison Racing are driving a Aston Martin for this one. They're currently leading the championship. Mugen Sim Racing are in a McLaren, and Danish Sim Racing League, are in a Ferrari. So 3 different manufacturers in the top 3 of the championship, and there's 3 different manufacturers represented within the 7 that we have, or within the 7 cars, that we have in GT3. So I would say for the moment it is extremely balanced, and over the first 2 races, and that is a good sign, because we haven't seen, for example, Aston Martin's finishing 1, 2, 3 and completely running away with it. We haven't seen anything like that, and we haven't seen anything like that in GTE really either, because Musto Racing drive a different car to DAS SR Lab, and Volante Racing have an Aston Martin and they're in 3rd. So it's just all changing really, and there's loads of different manufacturers up towards the top of both GTE categories, and it's a sign that the BAP is working, and that's a great thing for the series, great thing for Studio 397, and a compliment to them as well for getting it so right over the early part for the moment. Let's hope things haven't been knocked out of whack or anything. I'm sure they haven't. They've got experience with this kind of thing for many years now, but I hope it stays as it is right now, because it's incredibly close and incredibly balanced, I would say, in the GT categories.
Yeah, coming towards the end of the practice session, just under 3 minutes remain here at the Sebring International Raceway, live on GTR 24H. So good to see that the drivers are circulating around this 3.7 mile circuit that has been in the operation since round about the same sort of time when Silverstone got going, and that's quite funny because they both were originally Air Force bases before they got turned into what we see today. I think really there's one thing I love about this track is just the sheer magnitude of history that Sebring has, Ewan. Like every single track that we are visiting this year, the Brickyard, the home of British motorsport, Sebring, we've got the Green Hell, we've got the Ardennes, it's effectively showing that that these tracks, really do bring it all to life for our competitors and for those watching at home.
Yeah, certainly. They're iconic circuits. We've been talking about it before, that the calendar really doesn't have any bad circuits on it. This is the last time we'll be visiting a track that's outside of Europe. After this, we're going to Nürburgring, then Spa, then Le Mans, which are all in Europe, of course, all iconic in their own. But that's not to say that ones outside of Europe aren't iconic as well. We were maybe going to Matsusaka again for this season, but that's not happening this season. We're going to the Spa 24 Hours, which I think is a much better idea, and I'm very glad that it's actually on our Factor 2 now in its full glory now, really, and I'm very excited to go to that 24-hour race in about August time, I think it is, quite near to the actual real life date for that particular race. I was just going to check when I was going to check when it is, so I'll have to go and find it in a minute, but with the rescheduling of Le Mans, I hope it's not on the same weekend, I've got to say.
No, it isn't.
Thank God for that.
You'll be pleased to know, of course, yes, the 24 Hours of Le Mans has been rescheduled to August 21st and 22nd, and here on GTR 24H, this is going to be music to you and O'Leary's ears. Spa practice starts 26th of August, so right smack bang the weekend after we go round the 7.004 kilometre circuit for one round of the clock. I mean, you know, it's going to be rather interesting, but also we've got a later starting time because there's going to be a couple of hours practice before the race gets underway on the 28th of August at 2 p.m. Central European time. And then, so for those wondering about the calendar, we've got the Nürburgring 12 hours. They'll have until the 24th of June. That is like literally 3 months and 20 days or so from now to get ready for the Nürburgring. But yeah, I mean, I think the Nordschleife 24 that's going to be happening, the 15th and 16th of March, it is available for people to enter. We were talking about that earlier on. But yeah, I mean, such an incredible calendar. But with that, we need to go to a commercial break here on GTR 24H. And as always, we can't thank our sponsors enough, the likes of eSport TV, Racing for Green, Elite Gaming, Global Fix, and a whole lot more. We'll be back in just a couple of moments' time.
The 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship Round 3, 12 Hours of Sebring is brought to you in partnership with ESTV, Elite Gaming, SimLab, Motorvision.tv, Global Flix, Racing for Green, Viper Gaming, and AMD Ryzen Radeon.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals, and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor, or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.
Welcome back to the roundup of free practice here on GTR 24H for round 3 of the 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship. My name's Alex Goldschmidt, alongside me, Ewan O'Leary. Ewan, very, very interesting to see how challenging the track has been for the drivers here at Sebring. And in many respects, it's going to be quite interesting to see how the teams deal with qualifying tomorrow night, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say so. We've been given a bit of an early taster of what we're going to expect throughout this particular weekend and through qualifying tomorrow. But as we keep saying, we don't know who's sandbagging, we don't know who's doing what really. So, yeah, we've been given a bit of a taster tonight, but qualifying is where things are really going to get serious. But let's not kid ourselves, really. It's not going to be overly important in a 12-hour race. It doesn't really matter if you qualify first or second. It's a nice show of strength, and it's good to have that little bit of confidence going towards a 12-hour race like this, but it's not the be-all and end-all of having a good endurance race, which is obviously on Saturday. But yeah, tomorrow's still going to be important and well worth tuning in for, I'm sure, as well.
Well, we're going to have a regular visitor to the interview booth. Let's see if I can drag him up now from Glam Racing. Fastest in... Well, I don't know if I can do it. If you'd like to do the honours, I'll have a chat with him, Ewan. Well, let's have a chat with Glam Racing's Callum Wilson. Good evening, Callum. Can you hear us?
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Can indeed. As they say, 5x5 over in the US when they're on the CB radios and the 18-wheeler articulates, but I digress. Good showing by the Aston Martin. I think just over 3/10 up in free practice. How's the car feeling?
Car feels okay. Not sure it's quite where we want it to be just yet. The final corner is particularly difficult with all the bumps, and as soon as you get behind another car, that final corner feels like it's the first time you've ever taken it. But apart from that, it's okay. Like, I'm not getting excited about any kind of gap to any car, because we know that fuel loads can be a big difference around this track. I mean, I think fuel load really is worth a second and a half, 2 seconds, if not more, let alone tyres. So timings don't mean anything at the moment. We're just trying to concentrate on getting around in one piece, which is a little bit more difficult than you'd think at Sebring. But yeah, it's good fun so far. And like I think I said to you last time, I don't know this track very well.
Yeah.
So
I do remember that.
Yeah, I'm still trying to. I've been doing so much practice, and I feel a little bit more familiar with it now, but still not quite there yet. It's that final corner. If I can get that right, I'll be happy. But yeah. Tricky, but good fun.
I'm glad to hear it. Now, obviously, the biggest update that's happened for GT3 before coming into this round was the BOP adjustment. Mm-hmm. How much work have you all put in to sort of like compensate for that? Because that's something that normally happens in real life racing. Now that Studio 397 dropped the GT3 balance of performance adjustment, how has that compromised you guys at Glam Racing with the Aston Martin?
It's quite difficult to say, actually, because whilst the Aston did get quite a big BOP or a nerf, whatever you want to call it, it had, don't quote me on this, but it was something like 1% less engine power and maybe 10 kg more weight. I'll have to check that, but something like that. And it's difficult to say because we've not driven this car at Sebring before to have any kind of times to compare it against. But it doesn't feel like a different car. If I have other GT3 cars around me on the circuit, it doesn't feel like it's out of place or it's massively slower anymore. I think it feels like it's quite well balanced. We probably would have said the GT3 Aston was quite slow to begin with anyway, so if they have slowed it down, then we've really got no excuse now. But yeah, on the whole, it it still feels the same. You know, it corners the same way, and it's got the lift off oversteer, which we hate, but it's there. But yeah, it's hard to say unless we had like a direct comparison, which we don't have. But it seems it's definitely not night and day. For example, it's a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think I'm just actually having a look on the BOP. You guys have only got a 5 kilo additional penalty in terms of weight, so not too bad. If it was 10 kilos, I think probably that lift-off oversteer might be a bit more pronounced on that car, depending on where the weight would be situated. But yeah, like you say, I mean, the amount of bumps and undulation, it can unsettle the car, but from just having done this practice session and seeing what the LMP2s and what the GTEs are doing, how compliant is the suspension on these bumps? Because it's not like it's a complete bone shake of the Aston Martin, but you've got to be at least probably quite happy that you haven't probably got the force feedback of what an LMP2 car has currently been having for the last 2 hours this practice session. It's
funny because you sit behind them and they go into like the bumpiest corners and you see their car is moving all over the place and you think, oh, I'm so glad that's not me. It's still compliant over the curbs, but that kind of the S's before the back straight, I'm not sure the names of them, where you really need to ride the curbs as much as you can, and you can still do that. But the LMPs are a little bit more cautious through there. So, yeah, it could be way worse. Like I say, it's just the final corner. There's a massive bump in the middle of the final corner where, if your tyres start wearing or you're just hitting that, edge of grip towards the end of your stint, you could hit that final corner, hit a bump, and that's it. You're well off. You can lose a second there easily just by going offline a bit because of the bump. So that's really where we've got to manage it and make sure the dampers are right to take that consistently over a long race stint.
Yeah. Now, one final question, Callum. Obviously, it has been an interesting season so far for the 404 crew. You've had what is it? You're currently 5th in the standings on 26 points. You've completed both races, but those races have not been without drama. Are you hoping that third time is going to be a charm this season come Saturday?
We'll see. I don't want to say yes, because every time we've got to race, there's been a new technical problem. And I think without the technical problems, it's probably fair to say we could have seen a podium in both of the first 2 races this season.
Yeah.
So as long as we can get through with no technical problems, I think that has to be the priority, and just see where we are after 12 hours. No technical problems, no accidents, then who knows? But yes, obviously we're hoping for better. We always will. But if we can just get through the race with R Factor being the best R Factor you've ever seen, my PC not having a fit, my wheel not doing the same, I'll be really pleased. So yeah, keep it clean, and that's the thing about endurance racing, isn't it? Keep it clean and see where you end up, and that's what we've got to go for, I think.
Indeed. Well, Callum Wilson from the 404 Glam Racing GT3 crew. Callum, thanks for your time once again as always, and good luck for qualifying tomorrow night.
Thank you. I'll probably speak to you then.
Well, might not speak to me because I won't be here for qualifying.
Oh, there you go. I'll speak to someone. Yeah.
You'll be speaking to someone. You'll be speaking to a regular voice that you recognise. But Callum, have a good rest and all the very best of luck for tomorrow.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Well, that was quite an entertaining end to that conversation, wasn't it?
Yeah, Yusuf was just posting in the chat, by the way, which is what I was laughing about a moment ago. But yeah, we'll hopefully see Callum back in a few moments' time. But and probably during the race as well. He's quite a regular in the booth for a bit of an interview. And it's good to hear from him. But he acknowledges the fact, I think, more than anybody, that fuel loads and tyre wear and whatever, it's not representative of the practice time. So even though he has topped the session, it's a good confidence boost for those guys. It's not the be all and end all, certainly. And I was quite surprised to learn actually that a full fuel load around here could cost upwards of 1.5 seconds, maybe even in the worst cases. So that really did surprise me, I have to say. And if I'm honest, maybe some kind of short fueling strategy, or maybe pitting a little bit early in the first stint to get yourself out of traffic. straight is a strategy we really could see, because if you're gaining a second and a half a lap and you're stuck behind someone heading towards the end of the first hour, then for me, that's a no-brainer. Get in the pits early, shorter pit stop, and fill your car up, and then you'll be away with a bit of an undercut, or maybe an overcut if you can take your car a bit longer, and you can gain time that way. Maybe it seems like a really big kind of delta between the two.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. I mean, one of the other things that is also going to cause problems with lap time is the fact of degradation of tyres, depending on what the temperatures are going to do. And when we're going to be starting at noon, we finish at midnight. The biggest conundrum, and we've seen it time and time again. We saw it at Silverstone. As soon as the nighttime sky hits the circuit, the first thing that drops is not only the track temperature, but then also the tyre temperature. So when you've got a set of tyres that are degrading over a particular stint period, whether they're double, triple, quadruple stinting the tyres, who knows? It's only what the teams will know, and we don't know ourselves here on commentary. But then also, when you come out of the pits and you think you've got that undercut done, and it takes you a couple of laps or so additional to warm up those tyres. And it's about those that activate it the quickest that have the best opportunity of being in that position to not only maybe go for a podium, not even go for a top 5, maybe even go for the W here in Sebring.
Yeah, absolutely. There'll be a lot of people and a lot of teams aiming to do that, and saw quite a few big names not here for the official practice. We'll see them in qualifying if indeed they are attending this weekend's event. But yeah, certainly we've got a lot of people, a lot of teams, competing for only one spot, and that's the winner's spot, of course. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. We've got our kind of first view of what things are going to be like. But as I was mentioning earlier on, there's 5 teams. I would include Glam Racing and GT3, who could maybe have got a realistic chance of winning the race. Maybe DAS and Teleforingham maybe haven't, but they could spring a surprise. And in GTE, it's really take your pick, because it's been so up in the air in the first 2 races. There's no reason to suspect that it won't be the same this week either. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Lots of different cars that can win, and that makes the most exciting racing. And it's all going to come down to the end in the typical kind of endurance racing, where you might see gaps stretch out a little bit as we head towards 6 hours into the event, and it all closes up towards the end. We've seen one of the best finishes to an EEWC race that we've ever really had last month. The Silverstone 12 hours, it was fantastic. Toon Lowe was defending off a whole number of different LMP2 drivers, a bit of strategy going on, and GTE fights were going on as well, with Andy Kurtzen with the 45 trying to get through on different drivers. It was crazy towards the end of the race. Very enjoyable to watch, and yeah, we might see something similar here at Sebring. I certainly hope so anyway.
Yeah, definitely the case. I mean, it was quite funny when myself and Yusuf were on the last couple of hours, and he went on board with the LMP2 fight. I went on board with Pauli Ahonen when he was battling with Andy Kirsten before Andy unfortunately it was an LMP2 car that ended up sort of compromising, but then the last moment penalty for Pauli Ahonen brought Andy Kirsten right back into it. Are we going to see anything like this on Saturday? Join us here on GTR 24H for qualifying for the 12 hours of Sebring tomorrow night, starting at 7 p.m. Central European time in just over 20 hours and 44 minutes time. On behalf of Ewan O'Leary, Yusuf bin Sahel, my name's Alex Goldschmidt. Thank you for watching. See you tomorrow night.
The 2021 Endurance E-Racing World Championship Round 3, 12 Hours of Sebring is brought to you in partnership with ESTV, Leap Gaming, SimLab, Motorvision.tv, Global Flix, Racing for Green, Viper Gaming, and AMD Ryzen Radeon.
Racing for Green is here to help you carbon neutralize your racing. By planting new trees, Racing for Green offers to make your racing carbon neutral. We already have the calculations, contacts, infrastructure, deals and solutions ready for you to easily buy carbon neutral laps on any racetrack. It doesn't matter if you are a racing fan, team owner, driver, sponsor or partner. Anyone can buy CO2 neutral laps in the Racing for Green webshop and trade CO2 emissions for New Forest. Racing for Green.